Brothers and sisters, since we have shifted from December 17th, yesterday, to the second aspect of Advent, one that focuses more intently upon the human origins and the coming of Jesus in Nazareth, that is, Jesus of Nazareth in Bethlehem, get my places straight here, we hear more directly some of the scriptures concerning that first coming of Jesus. Yesterday, had it not been a Sunday, we would have heard the genealogy of Jesus. That's where there was a lot of begetting. So-and-so begot so-and-so, begot so-and-so. And then we hear the rest. And it's important for us to understand this gospel well, because oftentimes we have a misunderstanding of what's going on. Mary and Joseph are married. Okay? They are already married. We use this word betrothed because it's the only equivalent in English that we have of married but not yet living together. So it's a word that doesn't quite fit the Jewish understanding. In Judaism, the first, at this time in history, the first year or so of marriage, they would contract the marriage and sign the contract, exchange the rings or whatever they would have, and the husband would go off and build a home for the wife. And it was the father's job, the father of the groom, to say, okay, it's ready. And then when that was the case, the husband was supposed to go and get the wife and bring her into his home. And then the wedding would be consummated. The marriage would be consummated. So this is what's going on. During this time, when they are already married, Mary is found to be with child by the Holy Spirit. Joseph doesn't know that it's by the Holy Spirit. And so he figures there are two things he can do. He can either bring a case against her where he publicly accuses her of adultery because, hey, if you put two and two together from only the human mindset, what are you going to get? That she committed adultery. Now, some would say Joseph would never accuse her of such a thing. He might not, but he might doubt. He might have some doubts. He's a human being. And so he decides instead for the second way he could do this is just simply a simple divorce without the accusation. He can just divorce her quietly. No guilt brought against her. No stoning, which would have been what was supposed to take place. Of course, people would have wondered, but that's another story. So that's what he decided upon. And then it was the angel of the Lord that comes to him and says, no, don't do that. This is an act of God. And you are called to bring her, your wife, into your home. That's the words that we see in this translation. Do not be afraid to take Mary, your wife, into your home, because it is by the Holy Spirit that she has conceived. And you are to name the child Jesus. You are to adopt the child. You are to name the child, claiming the child as your own. And yes, people will think, the so-called righteous Joseph couldn't wait. But that's okay. We hear these other words. It says this, that Joseph had no relations with her until she bore a son and named him Jesus. Here's the problem with that English is this. The word until doesn't reflect the Greek. The Greek just simply says, from the moment that he took her into his home until she bore, during that time period, he had no relations. It does not mean, as it does in English, that afterwards they might have had relations. It's just saying, during this time period, nothing. In other words, it's saying this child was not somehow conceived between Joseph and Mary. That's all it's trying to say. It's not trying to imply that there were relations afterwards. That's English that does that. Greek doesn't do that. Greek doesn't imply that something else happened after the until. Okay? I know it's a lot to unpack. It's a linguistic journey here. But what does this call us to? It calls us to enter into the mystery of having our own plans and our own understanding interrupted. Because, let's face it, every single one of us would want to say, oh, well, didn't they enjoy marriage as understood by most people? No. They had a mysterious marriage. They had a mysterious conception. Everything about their relationship was mysterious, and they were called beyond their own understanding. During this time, as we are celebrating the first coming of Jesus, we ask the Lord for the grace to call us in faith beyond our own understanding so that we can enter into the mysteries of that which is God. First and foremost, the main mystery that we celebrate day in and day out, Jesus coming to us in his body, blood, soul, and divinity in the Eucharist. That is beyond our own understanding, and yet we accept it by faith as Catholics. We know it to be true. Our hearts tell us that there is something different about the bread and the wine. After they have been consecrated, they are no longer bread and wine. They are Jesus under the form of the bread and the wine. And so we ask the Lord for that kind of radical faith that Joseph had. The radical faith that says, okay, this is beyond my understanding, but you have told me, and I know it's from you because it was definitely the angel of the Lord. He probably experienced something he couldn't have experienced otherwise called peace, right? And that's a fruit of the Spirit. You know it's the Holy Spirit when that happens. And he then goes and does what God has told him to, despite the fact that it was maybe not his original plan. That is Joseph's original plan, but it was God's. So we ask God for that kind of faith like Joseph this day.